This is chapter 7, lesson 7 on, what is it on? On page 569, and the topic is area and perimeter of similar figures. Very good. So, have you guys ever played Foursquare? Yeah. Outside, there's actually a Foursquare thing, and this is a square, so it's 16 feet by 16 feet. Are you writing what I'm writing? And then what they do is they split it into 4 equal squares, and so just kind of eyeball it. So they split it like this and like that, right? Would you say that each of these little baby squares is similar to the big square?
Yeah.
Yes, why? They are, so I said yes, they are all squares. And all squares are similar because they all have the same angles, and based on the angle similarity, they'd all be all good. So what is the perimeter of the larger square? So if I said, oh, it says centimeters. Silly people. I want you guys to cross this out and put feet. Let's do FT for feet. Okay, how am I going to find the perimeter of the big square? How do you do it?
Taking a wild guess and multiplying all the sides together.
You're going to add all the sides together. And how many sides are 16 feet long? 4 of them. So you can do 16 times by 4. So 16 times by 4, and we get, so what is the perimeter of the larger square drawn above? So the larger one is going to be 64 feet. Now if we had just one, if we split this in half, how long is one of the little baby square sides? 8 feet. And so what are we going to have to do to get the perimeter of that one?
8 times 8 times 8 times.
Not times. 8 times by 4, right? Because there are 4 sides that are that. And it's 32 feet. Very good. So how is the perimeter of one of the smaller squares related to the perimeter of the larger scale and the scale factor? So basically, how are 32 and 64 related?
32 is half.
So the smaller is equal to 1/2 of the larger. So that means that the scale factor equals 1/2. Oh, wait, of, how is the perimeter of the smaller squares related to the, yeah, I think it's 1/2. Very good. And we'll call that good. So the scale factor is 1/2. Did you guys get that down? Nice. Okay, everybody wrote that down. Nice work. Okay, so we have, these are just some examples, and they like to do these. This is the key concept. So these are the things that are just kind of in general terms. So if we have the perimeter of one figure, and we wanted to, and we had to multiply it by a scale factor, we take that perimeter of the smaller one and times it by the scale factor. So like we had half of the of the big one, right? The small one was half of the big one. But then area, so look at this, the area, they square the scale factor. So let's just practice squaring something. What is 2 squared? 4. So if the scale factor was 2 and we wanted to find out how many times bigger the area would be, instead of timesing by 2, we would times by, what is 2 squared again?
4.
4, nice, okay. So we have this, 2 rectangles are similar. One has a side length of 6 inches and a perimeter of 24 inches. The other has a length of 7 inches. What is the perimeter of this rectangle? So they said we saw from 7 to 6, right? Because 6 and perimeter of 24. And then we just can multiply it by that. That scale factor is 7/6. So we take 24 and times it by 7/6 and get the new one. Pretty easy. Okay, triangle. So let's try this out. Triangle MLMN is similar to this one. And I told us that it's similar, not like on the warm-up. If the perimeter of LMN is 64, what is the perimeter of PQR? So let's take the, to get from 24, we do 24 down to 18, right? So we would multiply it, oh, I need to have 18 on the top, because we take the perimeter of this one and times it by whatever 18/24 is. Oh, that's kind of squished.
Sorry, I was in the bathroom. Yeah, what
Okay.
page are we on?
We are on page 570.
570.
So 18, oops, clear, 18 divided by 24. And then we can change it to a decimal if you can't see it. So it would be 3/4. So our scale factor is 3/4 equals the scale factor. So if I knew that the perimeter of the big one was 64, I can do 64 and times it by 3/4 to get the perimeter of PQR. And so I'm going to put perim of triangle PQR. Nice little bit of sun right there. So in my calculator, I can do 64 times by 3 divided by 4. And we get 48. So it'd be 48, and this was meters, so this would be meters. Okay. Hey, rate yourself 1 to 5 on how good you feel about being able to do these things. Finding the scale factor and multiplying. How did I get 3/4? Because I saw to get from this one to this one, I was 18 compared to 24. So I reduced it and got the scale factor. Okay. In a scale drawing, looks like you guys are doing pretty good with that. In a scale drawing, the perimeter of the garden is 64 inches. The actual length of AB is 18 feet. What is the perimeter of the actual garden? So in a scale drawing, the perimeter of the garden is 64 inches.
18 over 64.
The actual length is 18 feet. What is the perimeter of the actual garden? So we're going to do, we look at the picture, because the picture's part of it. So we know that 18 feet is the same thing as 24. So we can see that the actual length is 18 feet. So AB in this picture, so we have 18 feet is to 24. And then they changed it so, because feet and inches are not the same. Would you guys agree? So they had to take 18 feet and they times it by 12 to get 216 feet and then reduced it and got 9 to 1. In other words, all you have to do is times 64 by 9 and you get the actual thing in inches. Now how do you get from inches to feet?
Times by 12.
Almost.
I mean, not.
Instead you divide by 12 and get that.
You mean 216 inches?
Yeah, so 18 feet is 216 inches.
Because I'm like,
Yeah, 18 feet is 216 inches because they times by 12. So then you reduced it because they had to have everything in the same unit. Notice we couldn't do 18, they couldn't do the feet and inches at the same time. So 2 quilting squares are shown. The scale factor is 3 to 2. What is the perimeter of TUVW? So what is the perimeter of this one? It's a square, right? So we take our 4 inches, and what do we have to times it by to get the perimeter? 4. So we know that it's going to be 16 inches, right? And then this one is bigger, and it's it's just the perimeter. We have 16 inches. What are we going to have to do with this 3/2?
multiply.
Yeah, multiply it by 3 over 2, and what do you get? You get 24? Yeah, let's see. 16 divided by 2 is what?
1
16 divided by 2?
A
8, right? So that would be 8. And then 8 times by 3 is 24 inches. Or you can do it in your calculator. Either way. So there you go. You didn't have to change the things here, but up here, my guess is that there's going to be some homework problems that you'll have to do that for. Then the Eddingtons have a 5 feet, so this little thing right here, that patio, that front porch, it's 5 feet by 8 feet. And they are building a similar porch. They want it to be similar on their back, on the back with double the dimensions. So the scale factor is 2. So what is the area of this little guy right here? What is 5 times by 8?
45.
It's 40, right? Because 8 times 5 is 40. And since it's the area, you're going to take that 40, and the scale factor is 2. Since we're talking area, then I would times it by 2 squared. So 4, and 2 squared is 4. 40 times 4 is 160. So the back porch will have an area of 160 square feet.
But why would you do it to?
Because it's the area. When it's the area, right here, when we talked about it right here, when it's the area, whatever the scale factor is, you have to square it. So we learned right here that our scale factor was 2, right? So we're just going to square that scale factor, and 2 squared is 4, right? Okay, so if it's area, you square it. What do you do if it's area? Square it. What if it's not area? What if it's just a length? What do you do?
Then multiply.
Just normal multiply, right? Okay. Good. Last thing, and then we're done with this lesson. And then you have 2 things to do. You can do the homework, normal homework, or the review. Both of them need to be done. So Malia is painting a mural on her bedroom wall. The image she is reproducing is 4.8 inches by 7.2 inches. If the dimensions of the mural are 10 times the dimension of the image, find the area of the mural in square inches. So if we're doing the area, what should we do with this scale factor right here?
Square.
So we're going to have to times whatever the area is, we're going to have to times it by 10 squared. And how are we going to find the area of a picture that's 4.8 inches by 7.2 inches? What do we have to do with those 2 numbers to find the area? Multiply, good. So what we can actually type in our calculator is just going to be 4.8
Permission slip that I need to bring
by
to the office.
7.2.
Can I bring it to the office now?
Okay, so you can type it in exactly like that to get the answer. So in my calculator, I can do 4.8 times 7.2 times by 100 squared. Not 100, just kidding, 10. 10 squared, which is 100. So then it would be 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. So that many inches squared. Okay. So your homework is either on Alex or the book.